Well, Google is honoring Dr. Salk today in honor of Dr. Salk's 100th birthday. He is the doctor who pioneered the first polio vaccine in 1954, and their doodle shows kids holding up signs saying, "Thank you for the vaccines, Dr. Salk. Yay, thank you for the vaccines." Now, just a little history on this. Dr. Salk pioneered this first polio vaccine by performing a double-blind experiment on school children. The school children, for their participation, were given a sweet and a polio pioneer certificate. The results were announced the following year, and they said that the vaccine is safe and effective, which is what they're still using, those buzzwords of safe and effective. And it is credited with completely eradicating polio in the U.S. by 1979. Yay, vaccines. Now, aside from the fact that some graphs show that infectious diseases were already on the decline prior to the advent of vaccines, let's just take a look at the dark history of these polio vaccines. Now, from 1953 to 1963, the Merck Drug Company vaccines had deliberately contaminated SV40 virus was in their vaccines, and they continued to give it out. Now, for years, researchers suggested that millions of vials of the polio vaccine that infected individuals, that caused tumors. Molecular evidence of these SV40 infections were showing up in children born after 1982, and some experts now suggest that this virus might have remained in the polio vaccine up until 1999. Now, Dr. Maurice Hilleman, he's a Merck scientist. He admits on tape that these vaccines were tainted with leukemia and other kinds of cancers, and they just gave it to the Russians.
So I brought African greens, and I didn't know we were importing AIDS virus at the time.
And it was you who introduced AIDS virus to the country.
No, that's right. But yellow fever vaccine had leukemia virus in it, and you know, this is in the days of very crude science. I just think this virus may have some long-term effects. And he said, "What?" I said, "Cancer."
I love it. I love it. Go ahead.
The jokes that were going around was, gee, we would win the Olympics because the Russians would all be loaded down with tumors. This is where the vaccine was being tested. This was right.
Now, at one time, the CDC's website admitted that they knew about this SV40 being in the polio vaccines, but of course, that fact sheet that linked the polio vaccine to cancer was sent down the memory hole. The site scrubbed a page that admitted this. The vaccine that was actually administered from 1955 to 1963 to over 98 million Americans, and that it was contaminated with SV40. Now, the pages, of course, are still available through Google's cache system, but the vaccine was discovered to contain the monkey cancer virus SV40 in 1960, but the existing polio vaccine stocks were not recalled and were used until 1963, and the CDC admits that on that page. Now, this means that the CDC was, for a period, consciously dispersing these vaccines that were known to have a possible link to cancer, including to tens of millions of people in other countries, such as the UK, Australia, and the former Soviet Union. Now, a Loyola University scientist says that it was possible that the Soviet Union's polio vaccine was contaminated until the early 80s, and it was probably exported to China, Japan, and several countries in Africa, meaning hundreds of millions of people could have been exposed. So, of course, if this was knowingly administered for years after the fact, there's no telling what's in vaccines today. So would they even have a problem recalling a vaccine if they found out that it was contaminated with something? Now, we've reported in the past, rather than throw away their contaminated drugs, Bayer just gave their AIDS-infected drugs to Africa. And then, of course, it later came out that they did this. Now, a 2009 article from the Boston Globe, it was originally titled, "Polio Surge in Nigeria After Vaccine Virus Mutates." Now, this was, obviously, if you go to that page now, it's been removed or deleted, of course. But it reported that polio was spreading in Nigeria, and health officials said in some cases that it's caused by the vaccine that's used to fight it. They say that experts have long believed epidemics that are unleashed by a vaccine's mutated virus wouldn't last, since the vaccine only contains a weakened virus strain, but that assumption is coming under pressure. Some experts now say that once viruses from vaccines start circulating, they can become just as dangerous as wild viruses. The only difference is that this virus was originally in a vaccine vial. Now, this is exactly what we are seeing with other viruses. Of course, they're reporting a resurgence of whooping cough, enterovirus, measles, mumps, rubella. But of course, it's a little bit of a mutated version, and these versions are more virulent. But the industry wants to blame it on parents who aren't getting their children vaccinated, even though in some, if not most of the cases of children that are coming down with these new mutated forms, they're kids who have been vaccinated for measles and mumps and rubella. So according to this graph, it shows that death rates from infectious diseases were already on the decline prior to the advent of vaccines. So what is the true reason for, them pushing this and saying that vaccines are responsible for the decline? Well, from his book, Health and Healing, Dr. Andrew Weil best answers it with this statement. He says, scientific medicine has taken credit that it does not deserve for some advances in health. Now, most people believe that victory over the infectious diseases of the last century came with the invention of immunizations. But in fact, they were in decline well before that these became available. And the result, of course, is better methods of sanitation, sewage disposal, and distribution of food and water. But of course, the propaganda in favor of immunizations continues to win the minds of the government. It's crippled the minds of the masses of people. They're still spinning this that you must vaccinate your children. And like we always say here at InfoWars, read the package insert, ask your doctor for the package insert, make your own educated decision on whether or not vaccines are truly going to help you and your family.